Hello, friends. Welcome. I'm Hadar Suskind, President and CEO of Americans for Peace Now. I cannot begin to tell you how much it means to me and to all of us at APN to share this evening with you. In the painful days since October 7th, with terrible news coming at us nearly every minute, we recognized that we were experiencing this moment on a deeply personal level. I and others on our staff have family and many friends there, including some serving in the IDF, some who were killed, and others who were taken hostage. We are also experiencing these difficult days as peace seekers and as keepers of the APN mission. And as we struggled to decide what to do with the event formerly known as the APN Gala, one thing was clear and unanimous. We needed to be together in community. We're all feeling the stress these days. We're exhausted. We feel broken. Even as we stand together, we feel isolated. I don't know about you, but I bawled my eyes out at a bar mitzvah this past Shabbat. So we decided that we would use this time to offer a space in which we could all come together as friends and colleagues and partners who care about the future of both Israel and Palestine, about the lives of Israeli children and Palestinian children, and feel embraced in a giant community hug. I first used that name for this event somewhat jokingly, but everyone I said it to said, yes, that's exactly what we need. So here we are. Thank you for coming to be with us in solidarity and partnership, in hope and in love. Tonight's program will not be what was originally planned, although we are still planning on presenting APN's founder, Mark Rosenblum, with our Peace Builders Award, recognizing that none of us would be here today working to make a better, more peaceful world without Mark's vision. Tonight, we'll be sharing the voices and hearts of friends who, like so many of us, are struggling. We're all in mourning at the loss of so many lives. We're all afraid for what is to come in the lives, Israeli and Palestinian, that are still to be lost. And yet, we all remain committed to a more hopeful future. I've emailed and texted and spoken with many of you over these last 2 weeks. In addition to the tears and the words of comfort, we've shared conversations about what Israel should do, about what the United States should do, and of course, about what we should do. I want to thank you all for your caring and your wisdom. And I want to share with everyone what I've said. There are no easy answers here. There are no catchy slogans that are going to make this better. There are only difficult decisions and imperfect solutions. I wish very much that I could tell you that I know the answers, but I do not. But what I can promise you is that in all of my conversations with community leaders, with members of Congress, with administration officials, I will continue to say what I believe to be true. I will continue to remind everyone that even in times of war, and even when others refuse to do so, we must remember our shared humanity and we must value every human life. And I'll continue to make it clear that there is no military solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There must be a plan for what comes after the war. There must be a political solution to the conflict. Okay, deep breath. Before I go any further, I want to acknowledge the incredible staff of APN. Putting together an event like this is always difficult, and our staff did a great job of that. And then I told them that we weren't doing that event and we needed to do it all over again in about 10 days. So I want to thank the whole team, and I especially want to thank Karen Paul, without whom this event would definitely not have been possible. So with that, I want to thank you all again for coming here, and I want to get our evening started. What could be a more fitting way to start our program than with the man who spent the last week traveling all over Israel to make music and lift spirits, the voice of our movement, our friend, David Broza.
Hello, everybody. In these times, I feel one has to hold on to a mantra or a prayer or maybe a song. So I offer this song for better times. אני מביט מהחלון וזה עושה לי די עצוב. האביב חלף עבר לו, מי יודע אם ישוב. הליצן היה למלך, הנביא נהיה ליצן, ושכחתי את הדרך, אבל אני עוד כאן, ויהיה טוב, כן. לפעמים אני נשמע, אז הלילה, הלילה, איתך אני נשאר. ילדים לובשים כנפיים ועפים אל הצבא, ואחרי שנתיים הם חוזרים ללא תשובה. אנשים חיים במתח, מחפשים סיבה לנשום, ובין שנאה לרצח מדברים על השלום. ויהיה טוב, יהיה טוב, כן. לפעמים אני נשבר, אז הלילה, הלילה, איתך אני נשאר. כן, שם למעלה בשמיים עננים לומדים לעוף, ואני מביט למעלה ורואה מטוס חטוף. ממשלה של גנרלים מחלקת את הנוף לשלהם ולשלנו, מתי נראה את הסוף? הנה בא נשיא מצרים, איך שמחתי לקראתו, פירמידות בעיניים ושלום במקטרתו, ואמרנו היי בוא נשלימה ונחיה כמו אחי. אז הוא אמר קדימה, רק תצאו מהשטחים, ויהיה טוב, או יהיה טוב, כן. לפעמים אני נשבר, אז הלילה, הלילה, כך אני נשאר. אני מביט מהחלון, לראות אם כל זה אמיתי, מביט מהחלון וממלמל את תפילתי. עוד נגור זאב עם כבש ונמר ירבץ צמדי, אך בינתיים אל תוציאי את ידך מכף ידי, כי יהיה טוב, או יהיה טוב, כן. לפעמים אני נשבר, אז הלילה, הלילה, איתך אני נשאר. אני מביט מהחלון, אולי מגיע יום חדש. יהיה טוב.
I can't imagine an APN gathering without David and his music. Thank you. One of the greatest gifts for me about working at APN is that we are blessed to have the most incredible partners on the ground. Peace Now, Shalom Achshav, the activists who have been protesting, demonstrating, and working for peace for decades, is an organization filled with the smartest, bravest, and most dedicated people I know. And now it's being led by one of the very best, Lior Amichai. We are fortunate to have Lior back with us and leading Peace Now in these turbulent times. Lior.
Hello, friends. I am Lior Amichai, the Executive Director of Shalom Achshav, Israel's Peace Now movement. A few weeks ago, a professional videographer prepared a video for you detailing our accomplishments during the past year, and we did accomplish quite a bit. But then came the tectonic events of October 7th, which are compelling us to focus on the present and the future rather than the past. We appreciate APN's solidarity and support for us. We deeply appreciate your standing with us at this difficult time. Israel is in shock. We are in shock. We're angry and we're afraid for our lives. That's what terrorism does. It terrorizes. Many hundreds of Israelis were slaughtered in their own homes. We are a post-traumatic society that has now been re-traumatized. And we are all in mourning. This is a small society, and if you don't know someone who was either killed or abducted by terrorists on that disastrous Saturday, you know someone who lost someone, particularly in our pro-peace community. Many of the kibbutzniks in the south are peace activists. Ironically, quite a few of the 200 Israelis who are held hostage in Gaza are activists who for years were involved in efforts to build bridges of peace to the people of Gaza. We're anxious also because we realize that this war is bound to get further complicated, and because we know it will be protracted. And we realize what kind of toxic impact this is bound to have on political attitudes of our fellow Israelis. In the short run, we have little doubt that our work, trying to impact Israeli public opinion to support peace, will become harder. Yet at the same time, Israelis are seriously examining their leadership and the policies that led us to this point. We see that many understand that conflict management has failed us. Netanyahu's policy of weakening pragmatic Palestinians and empowering the radicals, empowering Hamas, a policy he boasted as a tool to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state, was a recipe for the disaster we experienced 2 weeks ago. People are already livid about that catastrophic strategy. And we know that Israelis are already asking what will happen once Hamas is dealt with or weakened dramatically. How do we proceed to a political arrangement or even a political solution? We understand that successful military operations must include a political horizon. Will we have a war and peace with the Palestinians soon? Reconciliation? It's hard to see on the near future. Yet a political settlement that will provide security, sovereignty, and independence for both peoples, that is not only possible, that is our mission. It is more vital today than it was ever. 1,300 Israelis were murdered. Over 200, including babies and children, are abducted. In Gaza, thousands are dead. What will be the day after? How do we ensure that this will never happen again? I want to share with you a poem by Yehuda Amichai. A man doesn't have time in his life to have time for everything. He doesn't have seasons enough to have a season for every purpose. Ecclesiastes was wrong about that. A man needs to love and to hate at the same moment, to laugh and cry with the same eyes, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them, to make love in war and war in love, and to hate and to forgive and remember and forget, to arrange and confuse, to eat and to digest, what history takes years and years to do. A man doesn't have time. When he loses, he seeks. When he finds, he forgets. And he forgets, he loves. When he loves, he begins to forget. And his soul is seasoned. His soul is very professional. Only his body remains forever, an amateur. It tries and it misses, gets muddled, doesn't learn a thing, drunk and blind in its pleasures and its pains. He will die as figs die in autumn, shriveled and full of himself and sweet, the leaves growing dry on the ground, the bare branches pointing to the place where there's time for everything. Dear friends, we have our work cut for us. We have faced challenges before, complicated ones. This one is more difficult than others. Knowing that you're standing with us, that you're supporting us and working with us energizes and empowers us. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your support. Shalom.
Thank you, Lior. So I reached out to Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal a month or so ago, and she had very kindly agreed to speak at our gala. When I reached out to her again last week to say that we were, of course, changing everything, and I understood if she didn't want to do so at such a politically fraught time like this, she immediately said that in a time like this, it is more important than ever, and of course she would be with us. And for that, I am extremely grateful. Friends, I am pleased to introduce you to my friend, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you so much, Hadar, from the bottom of my heart for your leadership, and to Americans for Peace Now for the work that you're doing, and most of all for your courage in creating space for a real human conversation at this incredibly difficult time. I am so honored to be included in this important giant community hug, and I want to send my own giant community hug to all of you. I stand with you tonight in solidarity and in shared humanity as we are all still reeling from the horrific terrorist attacks that unfolded on October 7th. These acts of violence have shaken each of us to our core, reminding us of the urgent need to come together as a community and to advocate for a world where peace and understanding prevail. I have unequivocally condemned these terrorist attacks. I have joined my voice with yours in calling for the immediate release of the hostages taken captive, as well as emphasizing the importance of safeguarding innocent lives and upholding the principles of justice. As we navigate these very difficult times, our shared commitment to peace serves as a beacon guiding us forward. We are bound by our collective dedication to minimizing the loss of civilian lives in both Israel and Gaza. As President Biden has said, Israel must follow international humanitarian law, because no matter where you stand on this conflict, international humanitarian law does not stipulate whether the commencement of an armed conflict was legitimate or not. Rather, it regulates the behavior of parties once the conflict has started. International humanitarian law calls on countries to protect innocent civilians not participating in hostilities, and it limits the means and the methods of warfare so that civilians are not part of collective punishment of death or devastation that's inflicted upon them. It is at its core designed to give us moral clarity of purpose at the very time when it is most difficult to see. Our country has the duty to protect our moral authority and leadership, which is why I hope the president continues to speak to its importance. Tonight, as we gather in the face of tragedy, I am inspired by the music, the incredible music, the message, the strength, and the resilience of this community. Your presence here tonight signifies a collective determination to advocate for a peaceful and a just end to this conflict. Together, we send a powerful message that violence and hatred will not prevail. And as many of you may know, I have been vocal in my call for a ceasefire, or at minimum, a cessation of violence, to allow for fuel, food, water, humanitarian aid to enter Gaza and for hostages to be released. In the face of these challenging times, we are always reminded that peace is not a passive concept, but rather an active pursuit that requires our collective efforts, our collective energy. As a lifelong student of nonviolence myself, of Mahatma Gandhi and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and now a member of Congress, I know that my job is to advocate for peace and to save innocent lives. In the words of Dr. King, the ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. In fact, violence merely increases hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Dr. King was so clear, and we too must be clear. We must not lose sight of our shared humanity and of the light that binds us together and empowers us to stand against injustice and with each other, with our human hearts joined collectively. I want to thank you for your unwavering commitment to peace and for allowing me the privilege of being with you, to stand with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pramila. It means a lot to me personally to have you here with us tonight, and thank you all the more so for all the work that you do day in and day out in Congress. Now, I am pleased to be able to introduce another staunch ally, my colleague and friend, Ken Bobb. For those of you who don't know Ken, he is the national president of one of our Progressive Israel Network partners, Amenu. Ken is actually currently in Israel, where his daughter just had a baby, and he is spending most of his time actively working on seeking the release of the hostages being held by Hamas. He's going to share with us some thoughts about this effort and obviously the events of the last 2 weeks. Take it away, Ken.
Thank you, Hadar, and I welcome this opportunity to speak about the over 200 hostages who were taken to Gaza during the Hamas and Islamic Jihad attack on Saturday, October 7th. As I'm sure you've all heard, they range from infants to senior citizens. They are kibbutz and moshav members, city dwellers, young people attending a music festival, medics caring for the injured, foreign workers, soldiers, and more. Here are the profiles of several of them. Hirsch Goldberg Poland, a dual Israeli-American citizen. I attended a panel this week with hostage families and met Hirsch's parents, Rachel and John. After celebrating Erev Simchat Torah with his family, Hirsch headed down to Kibbutz Re'im for the Nova Music Festival with a friend. When the violence began, Hirsch took cover with others in a bomb shelter and was badly injured as terrorists lobbed hand grenade after hand grenade into the shelter, killing most of those inside. There's video evidence of Hirsch being loaded into a vehicle and taken to Gaza. Keith and Aviva Siegel. Keith also was a dual Israeli-American citizen. In the early 1970s, I was a volunteer on Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and 50 years later, I have maintained contact with the folks there. Keith and Aviva were abducted from their home on Kibbutz Kfar Aza, one of the hardest hit settlements that day. They have 4 children who live in Israel, including a son who escaped from the kibbutz miraculously without injury. I'm close friends with Keith's brother Lee, with whom I lived on Kibbutz Gezer for many years. Vivian Silver, a dual Israeli-Canadian citizen. Vivian, a close friend who was involved in the founding of Kibbutz Gezer, is missing from her home on Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the communities closest to Gaza. Several of us were in touch with her on that Saturday morning while she was alone in her safe room, and we received a final WhatsApp message at around 11 o'clock in which she texted that she heard yelling and shooting outside her room. Subsequently, we saw a video of her house completely burned. Some of you may know of Vivian's activism around Jewish and Bedouin relations in the Negev, and more recently as a co-founder of the Women Wage Peace organization. She also volunteers to drive Palestinian patients from the Erez crossing of Gaza to their appointments in Israeli hospitals. Bringing all the hostages home must be a top priority for Israel, as well as for those countries where they hold dual citizenship. Please join me in demanding that Hamas and Islamic Jihad release the hostages unconditionally now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. I and APN are grateful for your partnership in this work and so much else. And we are grateful to have so many partners and friends in this work, which leads me to our next guest. Rabbi Jill Jacobs is the executive director of Truah, the Rabbinic Call for Justice. Anyone who has ever met Jill, ever heard her speak, ever read her writing, or simply paid attention to the incredible work of Truah knows how important and just how powerful her voice is. Jill is joining us to offer a prayer and some words of wisdom, and I am very grateful. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you to Hadar. It's really wonderful, especially in these horrible, horrible times, to have APN and Hadar as really strong partners of Truah in this work. We've been sitting here for the past few weeks with grief, with anger, with fear. Many of us are spending our days calling and texting our family and friends in Israel. Some of us have lost people directly. Many more of us are 1 degree separated from people who have been killed or who are being held hostage. And of course, we're also in pain watching what's happening in Gaza, the civilians who are being killed as a result of this war. We have an example for holding the pain both of our own people and also of others in this week's Parsha, where we meet Abraham and Sarah for the first time. This is the moment when the story of the Torah moves from being the grand story of humanity into being the story of a family, that we're going to trace this family now from Abraham and Sarah through the generations on their way to a land, to the land of Israel. But at the same time that Abraham and Sarah bring the big story into the small story of a family, they also model that we can make space in our heart and in our homes and in our tents, as they show us, for others. As the story moves ahead, we'll see that they are people who not only focus on their own family, but also open themselves to others. In Judaism, there's of course been lots and lots of words in the last few weeks, but of course in Jewish tradition, we also pray. And fortunately or unfortunately, we have a long history of having to pray in very difficult times. So I want to offer 2 prayers tonight. First, I want to recite Tehillim, Psalm 121, which is a psalm that many congregations have added to their liturgy over the last few weeks. And then I also want to say a special prayer for the captives. And I think you'll have this on your screen. Shir lamala tesayin alari me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yiten lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha u'boecha me'ata v'ad olam. Perhaps along with many of you, I was at the UN this morning to greet the families of the hostages, some of the families of the hostages who were there for meetings to ask for international support in freeing their families. Of course, many of us know people who have been taken hostage personally or are 1 degree separated, and we're praying for everybody who has been taken hostage, and we pray that they are released soon, and we call, of course, on the international community to aid their release and on Israel to prioritize their release. Mi sheberach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov sarif karachel v'leah yivarech v'yishmor v'yinsor et hanedarim v'et hashvuim betoch sharachenu beit Yisrael hanetunim betzara v'shivya ba'avor shakal mitpalel ba'vuram hakadosh baruch hu yimalei rachamim aleihem v'yotzieh mechoshech v'zal mavet umosrotehem yinatek umimitzukotehem yoshiem v'shivei mera lechek mishpachotehem yodu l'Adonai chasdo niflotav livnei adam V'kuyam bahem mikra shekatuv, uftuyei Adonai yeshuvun, uva'otzion berinaha, v'simchat olam rosham, sason v'simcha yasigu, v'nasu yagon v'anacha, v'nomar amen. May the one who blessed Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah bless, protect, and guard those who are missing and held captive among our people, the house of Israel, who are in distress and captivity. As we, this community, prays for them, may the Holy Blessed One have compassion on them and bring them out from the darkness and the shadow of death. May God break their bonds, deliver them from their distress, and bring them swiftly back to their family's embrace. As it says, give thanks to God for God's mercy and for the wonders God does for all humanity. May this verse be fulfilled in them. Those redeemed by God will return. They will enter Zion with singing, and everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Amen. Thank you, Jill, and thank you for being here with us tonight. And thank you for all the work that you and your colleagues at TRUA do. From there, I'm pleased to introduce our next guest. Many of you know him. Many of you have seen him as part of APN events in the past. He is a singer. He is an actor. He is a Broadway legend. He is, as you know, an APN board member. And our friend Mandy Patinkin is joining us tonight. He's got some words and some music to share with us. So please take it away, Mandy.
This is from our family to you. Our hearts are broken. We cannot imagine what it is to live with terror on our doorstep, and the combination of grief and pain and fear and rage when families are callously murdered or taken hostage. For millennia, our people have had to flee and had to live with terror. It's not lost on us that the victims of war are every person on every side who simply long for a home and for the sense of safety and belonging that all of us long for. War asks us to dehumanize the other. So what we're focusing on is the humanity of every woman, man, and child who didn't ask for this, who didn't do this, who will not grow old to see their grandchildren grow up as we are able to see ours. We stand for peace and believe it is the only path by which we will ever get out of this. A prayer for peace. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made, and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Children may not obey, but children will listen. Children will look to you for which way to turn, to learn what to be. Careful before you say, listen to me. Children will listen. How do you say to your child in the night, nothing's all black, but then nothing's all white? How do you say it will all be all right when you know that it mightn't be true? What do you do? Careful the wish you make wishes our children. Care for the path they take, wishes come true. Not free. Care for the spell you cast, not just on children. Sometimes the spell may last past what you can see and turn against you. Careful the tale you tell, that is the spell. Children will listen. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Mandy, for the words, for the song, for being with us tonight, and for everything that you do. We are going to move now into a video about our honoree tonight, Mark Rosenblum. I'm not going to tell you too much about Mark because you'll learn more about him in this video. I do want to note that some of it, because it includes interviews with a number of different people, was taped before October 7th. So much of the focus was on democracy and on other issues, the protests there. After we get a chance to see this video, we are going to hear from APN Board Chair Jim Klutznick. So let's go to it.
Actually, knowing the awesome and the gruesome got me through to believe in hope without delusion.
I don't know how Mark showed up.
It was Sally who went to Mark.
I didn't pay much attention to Mark. I hired him quite quickly because I was really busy.
And Sally representing Shalom Akshav and asking him if he would put something together in the States.
And there wasn't even an organization in the United States.
There was no right to dissent against Israel in the American Jewish community.
And Sally came one sweet day, losing his passport the day he got in, and said, "Hey, Mark, we need you."
I take credit for this because I hired him in '83, so
And once he found us, we couldn't get away from him.
Meeting Peace Now and being blown away by their values.
He became the heart of a brand new phenomenon.
Being blown away by their courage.
he really belonged with us in terms of the way he thinks and the way he feels.
We were believers that there had to be peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
You don't know your own side on any issue unless you know the other's side.
And you had to talk to your enemy.
To not be angry against people who you think are Luddites or don't know this or don't know that.
I think he's the dream leader of a movement like ours.
The most dedicated, vital, and smart people I've worked with in my life.
Mark, whose head and heart are that of a teacher.
He epitomizes human kindness, gentleness, empathy.
There are really words of wisdom that sometimes come out of something that seems completely polished.
He continued working decades, really. So this is a unique story.
And I'm still learning from him all these years later.
Challenges now are the biggest challenges and surpass everything besides what Israel calls its moment of independence. We have to right now, while we save our democracy, we have to also attend to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. You can't say you're a democracy when you're occupying this many people. There's not democracy for the Palestinians until you close the inequities of life.
As a kid, he was and I say this endearingly, he was sort of a goofy, funny kid who would do anything to get some attention.
Mark does a number of impressions.
Donald Duck.
I think they are actually related.
Which of course was a hit with the kids.
He does his Donald Duck and they both started crying and ran out of the room. If you've known Mark for more than a half hour, you know that he is a baseball player.
I think I said shortstop once, and maybe he was second base.
Second base? That's wimps.
Was he catcher?
I had an arm like a missile.
But someplace in the infield.
I was a shortstop, the University of Wisconsin.
Someplace where you began a double play. And as you know, Mark is more than a double play in many respects.
Oh, there goes Mark again. And then, there's a newspaper story with a picture of Mark's car going under the truck.
When it comes to death, they can't seem to be able to kill me.
An enduring guy who gets under your skin sometimes.
Because Mark is also crazy, and I mean that in a good way.
He's not the most organized person, one should say.
Without his 24 hours, 7 days a week work, we would never have been able to carry on.
You have to first listen to them until they're through. And when they're through, have an honest sense of a response to them.
And I think what APN is today is to a large extent the child of Mark.
But that's good, because you don't want to ever be an ex something unless you're breaking from hatred to love.
Good evening. I'm Jim Klutznick, the chair of Americans for Peace Now. Up to this last minute, we weren't sure Mark was going to make it through, and I thought I'd have an easy chance of making a statement without getting refuted. So, Mark, hold your fire for a while. Mark is a childhood friend from many years ago. In the summer of 1948, my family moved to Park Forest, Illinois, a GI town built after World War II by my father, Philip Klutznick, who happened to be the commissioner of the Federal Public Housing Administration under Truman. And it was a town built 30 miles south of Chicago at the end of a rail line so people could commute to work. And after we moved in the same year, Mark's parents moved him and his older sister, I believe Ellen came later, from Mount Vernon, New York, to Park Forest. I didn't become aware of Mark because at that time he was just a 1-year-old infant, and I was a 5-year-old, maybe in some respects an infant also. But in any case, I did become aware of him several years later when his sister, Binny, who lives in Israel, a friend of my brother, Tom, my older brother, and Tom told me about Binny's very loquacious, and boisterous young brother, who I became aware of later when the synagogue was built, Beth Shalom, and we were at Sunday school. He was obviously in a younger class at the time, and then we got to know him over the years. In Park Forest, Mark was renowned for his baseball talents. At a young age, even as a little leaguer, he was a champion, and everybody understood it. But he took that talent forward throughout the rest of his life, up until, I should say, until he went to college, when he really became a champ. And he was at the University of Wisconsin as an all Big Ten. Mark, was it second base? Or maybe it was shortstop. Yeah, I think it was shortstop. And but after that, we weren't sure where he was going. Mark's sort of mercurial in many respects, in a very lovely way. And he went on from there, passing the chance the all Big Ten shortstop, and went on to NYU to earn a doctorate. And from there, he decided he'd go on in education and went to Queens College, beginning as a lecturer there. And from there, he developed the whole concept, I mean from Queens College, the concept of conflict resolution, be it religious, be it racial, or nationality, and came eventually to bringing his talents to bear on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Subsequently, he went to my father, who he was aware of as a national and international Jewish leader, and particularly because Dad had been reaching out and acting with the Palestinian leadership at that time. This was in the early 80s. And Mark came to Dad and said, look, we need to create an organization to support the Peace Now movement, Shalom Akshav, in Israel. And Dad had to send him out of the room a few times because he wasn't asking enough. But Mark finally figured it out. And the end result was Dad supported him, and I was put on the board in the bargain. So that's the history of the two of us. And I salute my good friend, my boyhood friend, for everything he's done all these years. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Jim. Second baseman. I'd like to do something very short because I've had a lot of problems. I have some kidney stones that weren't paying any rent for the inside use of my body, and they're bothering me. And I recuperated, but they've come back at an inappropriate moment. And I think that I would start with a serious, humorous comment that many people use to talk about the Middle East. If you're an optimist, you're just an ill-informed pessimist. There's no such thing as a breakthrough in positivity, and there's never going to be a Middle East that's going to be whole and productive and humane. And I've always been very blessed to have a sense of hope without delusion. And I've also had a chance to have people around me that are mentors, that are brilliant, and somehow get me into lucky situations, not because I'm competent, but because of sheer luck and listening to some of these mentors. And when I was asked by Sali Reshev to take over an opportunity of creating the first American version of a support network for Shalom Akshav. And I, over 40 years ago, when this was happening, was deeply inspired by the activism and values and courage and enlightened self-interest and the impact of Shalom Akshav, Peace Now in Israel. And I decided to accept their offer to be the first director of developing this network for Shalom Akshav. I quickly arranged a sabbatical from my professorship of CUNY and launched an experiential education as an unpotted wandering Jew in the United States and the Middle East for a decade. It was very different from my classroom experiences. My interests and level of knowledge and reasonable risk taking seemed to have accelerated outdoors on the ground. And I became very smitten with the idea of experiential education and developed courses that were going to be taking people to the Middle East. And Shalom Akshav actually gave me an experience of once in a lifetime. And there were 3 people that had, or I would say 4 people, maybe 5 that I should mention, every one of them that was talking about me when we were still living in a world that seemed to have some humanity. And I would say that Sally and Janet were the two most important people in Shalom Akshav at the time that I was now taking over, trying to do something in the United States. And I then had the luck to get to know, in a crazy accidental moment, a couple of generals who actually taught me about what I should be doing in a very deep and serious way. Amnon Lipton Shahak was the most recent of one that was engaged, as most people know, in the Geneva Initiative. He was a brilliant chief of staff of the IDF, and he was like a father to me in a lot of ways. And then I also had an opportunity to meet on the Palestinian side. And these are all great losses at critical moments in the lives of people that were heroic and were guidance people. There was the sense of a Palestinian prince that had a hold of Orient House and was the son of a heroic member of the Palestinian movement. And he took me also under his belt and came to the United States 5 different times, including in a meeting with a group of Christian fundamentalists. And there were 5,000 of them at a national program. And he went and spoke, and they were talking negatively about Jews. And there was anti-Semitic tropes all over the place. He stopped. He said, "I will not talk to this audience. I will make peace with peace now. And I've come to this country to talk to American Jews." And I stayed in contact with him for the rest of my life until he died tragically also, way before the times that he would have been a brilliant asset to all of us. So the movement has introduced me to people that were terribly important for the rest of my life. And I have 2 things that I have held on to. And besides being still hopeful without delusion, I never forget about what a couple of other military and security people told me. There was a brilliant man that was the advisor to both on terrorism, to both Abba Eban. Abba Eban is another person I was going to mention here, because Abba Eban had a flair for close encounters over food and having to wash your glasses over in his brilliance. And he never stopped talking. And he told me one day that, "Mark, we are committing suicide through annexation." Suicide through annexation? He said, yes, because what we don't understand is the more land we want to take and more Palestinians that are in it, they will outnumber us. And we're also preparing to be their he said, colonial masters, and nothing good comes out of that. And then there was somebody else that came along and made a similar comment and said that we have 2 choices. We can either help birth a Palestinian state living next to and securely to our Jewish state, or we shall become the Palestinian state. By dint of demography, and I looked at the last demographic figure of the numbers between Jews and Israelis, Jewish Israelis and Palestinian Arabs between the River Jordan and this Mediterranean. And you see that there is a demographic problem if you're not going to give a whole life of democracy and equity to the people that live with you. And I have been fighting for a very long time with the notion and have only come in the last 2 years to talk about it, and that is that Israel is a democracy for Jews. It is a democratic country with there's a Jewish state with a hyphen and a democracy that only is applicable to Jews. And I've been working now on two things that I'd like to indicate might be a group, something that is hopeful and it is not delusional. And it's the only thing that I've worked on in the last year by myself and two other Arab great scholars, much more knowledgeable and brilliant than myself. There are two things that must happen if we're to see some kind of breakout back towards a two-state solution. That is, first, to look inside. And the inside look is that demographically, how many kids that are Palestinian citizens are going to school and what kind of schools they go to. Very, very poor schools compared to the Jewish schools. What are the sense of the Orthodox and the Haredi population in first grade and second grade, and compare that now with other populations. We will not get to the point of what's the absolute necessity is a blocking majority in Israel is the name of the game. And if you look at the demography, as Tom Friedman tells us every time he speaks or writes, we don't have a number of Jews that is available. As we go down the line, it's less and less plausible that a Jewish Zionist blocking majority will come from the center left or leaning left. And we need to focus on the Palestinian citizens of the state of Israel and focus in particular on the leaders, the party heads of those. So we saw a year ago and a few months ago, for the first time in history, that we had a Palestinian with the courage that went to the 7 other political parties and looked at them and said, I would like to join with the Jewish delegation here in this coalition. And they all looked around at each other, I'm in the room, and they say, it's a deal. This is one of the fundamental things that has to be done by the Jewish movement when we get back, when the deadliness is out, when our fury is over. We must have more impact and interaction with them and get another party, at least, besides the one that we have from the courageous Abbas. He's a dental man. He is someone that can probably talk about the mess of the world, including in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, of there being a post-truth world. We need to have a world that is based on knowledge and facts and evidentiary paths of knowledge. And one of the things that there are some people working on now, as I'm speaking, about getting a second Arab party to prepare for the next election, which may be coming up quickly, to work with a center-left party to help get that blocking majority. That's the magical thing that has to be focused on at the end of the day. It's a game of blocking majority. And the only other thing I wanted to... Yep, go.
No, I wanted to just, I gotta keep us a little bit moving along. I wanted to take a minute and just thank you for all of that work. I want to thank you on behalf of everyone who is and frankly ever has been involved with APN. We are here today doing this work because of the work that you have done, and I, for sure, am here, standing on your shoulders. And I just want to express that gratitude for all of the years of work and the work that you continue to do. And just thank you very much.
I wanted to thank you also because I feel as if you're the most innovative director and head that Shalom Akshav in America has ever had. And I know this is the toughest time of anyone, and I see you standing strong, and you're one of the people that has that quality of urgency, but can go all of the way. It's not just a short race. It's the run till the win, and that will come.
Indeed. All right, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. With that, I am going to just say that we now have the real pleasure of bringing our friend and colleague Hamutal Guri, who's going to join us with a reading of a poem by her father, the great Israeli national poet Chaim Guri. Hamutal, if you don't know her, is a cultural critic, an activist, a storyteller for social change, as well as a longtime member of Women Wage Peace. She's going to read her father's poem, A Reasonable Chance, in Hebrew and in English. And her friend and her fellow Women Waging Peace activist, Radil Hani, is going to read it for us in Arabic. The poem was first published in Haaretz for a peace conference, which turned out to be on the first day of the 2014 Gaza war. So with that, Hamutal and Radil.
סיכוי סביר. חיים גורי. אומרים שיש סיכוי סביר לעוד מלחמה. עוד מלחמה נוספת על כל המלחמות שיש להן תאריכים, שמות ומקומות. אומרים שהחשבונות הארוכים זקוקים להם. עוד דור לדור מוסר את הרובה, כמו את המקל במרוץ שליחים. בינתיים אפשר לומר, כמעט בוודאות, שבעתיד נראה לעין, לא יחסרו פה ההולכים והבוכים, צאצאי יצחק וישמעאל, שני האחים.
احتمال معقول. حايم جوري، ترجمة سلمان مصالحة. يقولون هناك احتمال معقول لحرب أخرى، حرب أخرى تنضاف إلى جميع الحروب التي لها تواريخ، أسماء وأماكن وكل ما بينها. يقولون أن الحسابات الطويلة بحاجة إليها. هنا جيل لجيل يسلم البندقية كما العصا في سباق التتابع. في هذه الأثناء يمكن القول يقينا بالتقريب أنه في المستقبل المنظور لن ينقص هنا الذاهبون والباكون، أحفاد الأخوين الاثنين إسحاق وإسماعيل.
A Reasonable Chance by Chaim Guri. English translation by Vivian Eden. They say there's a reasonable chance of another war. Another war on top of all the wars that have dates, names, and places. They say the long accounts need them. Here generations pass along the rifle like the baton in a relay race. In the meantime, it can be said with near certainty that in the foreseeable future, there will be no lack of those who walk and wail, descendants of the two brothers, Isaac and Ishmael.
Hello, my name is Abby Rappaport, and I'm proud to be a member of the Americans for Peace Now board. I'm also from Austin, Texas, and that's why I'm honored tonight to introduce Austin Congressman Greg Casar, who wanted to send us his support.
Hi everyone, I'm Congressman Greg Casar from the heart of Texas, and from my heart I want to say thank you to every single one of you for supporting Americans for Peace Now. We know in these extremely awful and challenging times, your work is more important than ever. It's more important than ever for folks of conscience to be struggling for justice, to be struggling for peace, and to be out there saving lives. So thank you so very much.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Hamutal and Mordeo, and thank you, Abby and Greg. We're grateful to all of you for your inspiration and your support. Now I want to share with you a song that was recorded for us by Broadway singer and actor Nathan Salstone. Nathan was in the original production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the touring production of Hadestown, and most recently appeared on Broadway in the revival of Sweeney Todd. And now you will hear a song that he recorded for us.
Well, if we're gonna make it cross this river alive. We need to think like a boat and go with the tide. And I know where you've been has really left you in doubt of ever finding a harbor or figuring this out. Well, you're gonna need all the help you can get. So lift up your arms now and reach for it. Oh, just reach for it. Take your time, then it's not as bad as it seems. You'll be fine. It's just some rivers and streams in between you and where you wanna be. Watch the signs now, you'll know what they mean. You'll be fine now. Just stay close to me and make good hope walk with you through everything. May the song of good hope, may it walk with you through everything.
Thank you so much, Nathan. We are extremely grateful for the musicians in our lives in difficult times like this. So when we planned the original program, Israeli comedian and rising star in the democracy protests, Noam Schuster Eliassi, taped a funny and really heartwarming message for us from Israel. When the war broke out, we went back to Noam and asked her if she'd like to send a different message. And so here are her words to us tonight. Noam.
Hello, friends. The last video I recorded to you was a funny video. I prepared some jokes for you. I prepared a video for the event that was supposed to happen, but obviously a lot has happened since. So there's a lot of silence, painful, awful silence here. People are mourning and grieving, and we are still unfolding the grief. Everything is fresh, everything is happening. But I want to speak to you as members of, the peace community and people who believe that there is another way. We need you now more than ever, obviously. Many members of the peace community have been directly affected by the attacks in October 7th. Vivian Silver, an activist in Women Wage Peace and my mother's friend, and Chaim Katzman, who was an anti-occupation activist, who was also my friend, and Maoz, who is an entrepreneur. He owns the Abraham Hostels and has many Palestinian partners as his business partners, and his parents were murdered as well. A lot of people in our community, the peace community, have been affected, and we need you more than ever. We are lonely. Our political space is shrinking. What we've been protesting for the past year, trying to warn people that the democracy space, the democratic space is shrinking. This is exactly what is happening now. We're not allowed to speak against the war. Palestinian citizens in Israel are being arrested, and leftist activists are being threatened and monitored. I wish I had something funny and light to tell you, but we need your support more than ever. And as a comedian, as a Jewish comedian, we've always been very, very good in producing great material from our trauma. So stay tuned. Yeah, wow. Hold the people you love around you. Try to create some safety for the people that you care about in your networks. Check in on Palestinians and Israelis that you know, and put pressure for ceasefire immediately to bring back the hostages and to prevent any loss of innocent lives. We don't want our grief to be weaponized for more grief, for more bloodshed. This government is giving no answers to us, to the world, to the hostages' families. They're in the dark, they're being ignored. So we need you to put pressure and to give us your support. Thank you.
As you heard from Noam, that was recorded earlier, but I wish that she was here with us tonight to see the hundreds and hundreds of people who've come together to be in community, to share in this big hug, and who want to support our friends and our partners and be part of this solution. I'm grateful to Noam, and again, I'm grateful for all of you who are here. With more gratitude and with thoughts about what it's like here on this side of the ocean, I want to introduce my friend, APN board member, actor, social media provocateur, Joshua Molina. Josh.
Hi, I'm Joshua Molina, and I am a proud board member of Americans for Peace Now. My colleagues and friends at APN had originally asked me to say a few words, possibly humorous, for tonight's event, which of course was supposed to be a gala. But this is no longer a time for levity. Still, I'm glad to be here, wrapped up with all of you in this giant community hug. We are all reeling, shocked, in pain. Each day we learn more about the brutal violence perpetrated against our family, our friends, our people. And we hurt too as we see the deaths of so many in Gaza. It's very difficult right now to come up with any words. But like many of you, I feel the need to say something. I struggle in my attempts to be nuanced in online conversations. I want to make sure that we're not losing our humanity in the face of inhumanity. And I also want to hold our humanity with humility, knowing that no one knows the answers in these days of chaos, sadness, and war. That's why I deeply value APN and its commitment to the truth, to holding up the lives of both Israelis and Palestinians as being partners on the road to peace. Even now. It's currently quite difficult to see clearly through to the other side, but I know that I can rely on APN and our partners at Shalom Achshav, Peace Now in Israel, to steady us through the turbulence and to help us remember the ultimate goal: peace, shalom, salam.
Thank you, Josh. I'm just very grateful for your dedication and your fearlessness about speaking out publicly. So I thank you. My friends, we are reaching the end of our program. I hope that you have felt embraced in that community hug that we wanted to offer. I hope that you, like us, feel more deeply committed than ever to the very hard work of waging peace. And I hope that you'll continue to be part of our APN family, protesting with us, demonstrating with us, supporting us, and being with us as we raise our voice in the cause of a better future, of peace for Israelis and peace for Palestinians. To take us out, I want to share a message from my friend Micah Hendler, the founder and artistic director of the Jerusalem Youth Chorus. Probably you know about them, but if you don't, the chorus is comprised of both Jewish and Palestinian youth who come together in song and in dialogue. After Micah's words, we are going to hear from the chorus itself, offering their vision of a peaceful future with music. With that, I send you all love, and I wish us all peace and better days to come. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Micah Hendler. I'm the founder and the artistic director of the Jerusalem Youth Chorus, an Israeli-Palestinian youth music and dialogue project whose music you may have heard at previous APN events, perhaps in better times. We, in these extremely, extremely challenging times, are trying to use our music to help people keep their hearts open to one another across all lines. There's enough suffering, unfortunately, to go around. And the role of our music as an Israeli-Palestinian ensemble right now is to try to bring people together even in that moment of deepest pain. Because it's only together that we can build a world from love.
والناس عم بتعاني. كيف بدنا نحب بعض وكل حدا بيكون أناني. كيف بدك أبني أرضي مسروقة. كيف أبني أصلا لازمني رخصة العربي محروقة. يا لوني عارف قعدت أكتب أغاني حلمي بعيد ولسان ساعي لا منالي. معلش بصوتي هذا أنا بواسي حالي. مع هيك رح ضلني غني رح ضلنا نادي. الله حسني عليك.
הימים היו שם עוד, ימי שיטוט ברחובות, ואת היית שר אנגלית על חוף עזוב מאהבות. חשבתי שלא תדבר, לחשת לי שם בלונד רדד הר, נשענו על המכונית, לאהבה אין שום הסבר. בחדרים שמענו רוק, הכל היה יכול לקרות, על הקירות השארת שורות כמו